Thank you very much. And Karen, great presentation. I'm going to build off of Karen's presentation a little bit. And the title of the session is Navigating Business Development and Construction as a Leader, Not a Follower. And the difference for the setup here is that leaders dictate the pace and they make great clients, whereas followers tend to adhere themselves to whatever the buyer's process is. So whether you're in construction or you're in a different industry, manufacturing, healthcare, software, hardware, whatever it is, if you want to sell bigger deals, if you want to sell to bigger clients, what we know is that we need to lead that process. And I'm going to illustrate to you why that is. So to make this sort of relatable for everybody, I want to start with a quick exercise. So if you have a pad of paper, you have a pen, this is a good time to have that out, because I'm going to relate this in the simplest terms as to what we're going to talk about. And there's a secret at the end of this that's going to help you develop more business. And it may seem simple and obvious, but many people aren't doing it. So let's just start with the exercise. So I'm going to show you something here. You guys on your screen should see 9, I'm going to call these numbers or variables. You have 9 variables, kind of like a sales process where anytime you're meeting with a new client or a new prospect, or it's a big deal and there's lots of people involved, there's variables. Now, Gartner says that 6.8 decision makers or stakeholders are involved in a large deal or an enterprise deal or a complex sale, whatever you call it. But there's usually 6 to 7 people or stakeholders involved. So they could be one variable amongst many in making a decision to work with you. So I want you to notice the shapes correlating with the numbers. Okay, just take a minute. I'm going to give you a 3, 2, 1 countdown. And I just want you to see if you can lock the shapes and numbers in your brain without writing anything down yet. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. Now you should have some of those shapes you should have now memorized. So you should take a shot at this. I don't expect great results here, but do you think you could write the correlating shapes to the numbers 2, 4, 1? Okay. Now, what I'll tell you is my audience typically, if I'm in person, can't do this the first time. Okay. It's almost like your first day on the job and being told how to do your job. People can show you, but you can't necessarily recall it because of the variables involved. So let's do it again, because repetition sometimes helps. So let's do it again. I'm going to give you the numbers. I want you to notice the shapes correlating to the numbers and see if this time you can write them down. But, just like your second day on the job, I'm going to give you a different set of numbers or different variables, 639. Now, give a shot, or at least in your head, say aloud whether or not you think you can find the shapes that correlate with each number. Again, I'll tell you that in person with most of my audiences, they cannot do this. So it's kind of like being on your first, second, or third, or 90th day in the job. If you're not using our onboarding process, or you're dealing with a new client or prospect, the variables are constantly changing. So how do we make sense of this in a complex sale? Because there's an important secret behind all of this. Now, if you think you took a chance to write that down, and these are the shapes, good for you. You would be one of the rare few who could actually, on the second attempt, get the right shapes correlating to the right numbers. Now, I'm going to give you a secret, and you're going to go, Matt, this is so simple. Why didn't I think of it? But I'm going to give you a way where I guarantee you, not only now, I can teach you in 1 second, not only now, but forever in the future, I can throw any of these 9 variables at you, and you'll immediately make sense of them. If you don't believe me, take a look at the tic-tac-toe board. Each number is correlated to a shape. Now, just to test your knowledge, if you want, and you can type into chat and let me know, just by simply saying, I got it, Matt. Now I could do this. I don't care what numbers you throw at me. I could throw the numbers 924 at you, and you can probably come up with the shapes. If any of you out there having a watch party, write it down on your pad, show it to your partner really quick, or your neighbor. But these are the numbers, or these are the shapes that correlate with the numbers. So the secret I'm getting at, the simple secret, no matter what complex sale, whether you're onboarding in your job, whether you're dealing with, in this particular case, navigating business development in a complex sale, I want you to understand this key principle. We have to make the complex simple to lead. If you want to lead the process, you have to make it simpler than what your client is currently doing or your prospect is currently doing. So what I would say is this is pattern recognition. And pattern recognition empowers sales leaders to work smarter, not harder, by uncovering valuable insights from recurring behaviors and trends. This helps you improve your targeting, your client engagement, and ultimately your sales success. But you have to remember, your client is still dealing with the non-tic-tac-toe board. They're dealing with numbers and shapes, and they don't always make sense, and they're always different. You can make sense of that, and this is how you're going to win more business. So we're going to expand on this. Now, I asked myself, what are some of the industries we work in where things are complex and it leads to problems if it's not done right? In other words, I want us to look beyond the sale. Every time I make a sale where I sell a larger client, a more complex deal, I want that work to be easier for me to execute. And I want that client to bring their friends. I can't just focus on winning the business. Winning the business, and you can answer aloud to yourself if this is true. If you find yourself chasing clients or you find yourself winning business and then you have these headaches with your client afterwards, that's the problem. We're focused on just winning the business. I want us to make better clients as leaders. And so to do that, I looked at the construction industry and ran a study, 300 people or 300 businesses in the construction industry in the Mid-Atlantic. And from that survey, we learned some things, okay? Now I'm going to tell you the hint here is that in construction, why I like this is because they're complex projects. They're usually big dollars and there's lots of people involved. If that fits the description of you might be selling association memberships. Well, if you're selling to a large client, there's probably other people inside that you're selling to that you're not talking to. That's a complex sale. So it really doesn't matter what industry you're in. But what I want to convince you of, and some of you are going to hate this, bidding is a zero-sum game. I think it makes everything exponentially harder. I think in some cases it makes us not look forward to getting more business because we're having such a hard time with the business we have. I want to sell beyond the sale. I want to make a better client by being a leader. So to do that, we looked at these different areas. We looked at trends in buying, trends in selling, and we looked at ultimately what does this result in based on people too focused on winning the opportunity but not thinking long term, and what should we do about it? So I'm going to give you some tools to do that. And I'll give you some examples, but I want to sort of just start with what's going on. So the trends in buying that we saw, there was tons of data from this. If anybody wants the research report, you can ask us for this and we can give you the entire research report. But some purchasing patterns, some key things I want to pull out from that research report was 90% of buyers in the construction industry, and this is probably true if you're not in the construction industry and you sell a complex type of product or sale, is the buyers will say they regularly buy more than low bid, meaning they will say price is not the issue. It's really about your quality, but they will not define what that means. Now, nearly 25% of buyers will invite at least one competing party to bid that has no shot of winning the business. It's sort of like that old saying in poker, if you don't know who the patsy at the table is, it's you, right? So again, I'm trying to convince you here that if you've had that experience, that we probably need to check out a little bit more before we invest our valuable time and resources. But here's the key, and this is contrasting to what I just said. More than half of the respondents said they have one partner they don't bid out. They give all the business to that partner. And I'm guessing if you're on here, you're a learner and you probably, because it's going to be obvious to your clients you're learning and you care, you probably have some clients like this, or you will soon. But the key thing is that I want to impress upon you that buyers are willing to partner up. They're willing to do it, but there's conditions to it. Now, the other thing that I want to make sure is you understand the motivation behind negotiating. So 70% will negotiate even when they actually don't need you to lower your price. They've already decided it's you, yet they're going to ask you for a lower price. Guys, buyers or professional buyers are trained to ask for a discount. Okay. Now, they use this as a way, at least half or more, 63% use this as a way to create profit, to de-risk the deal of working with you, because they know they can't figure everything out. They saw the tic-tac-toe board. They saw the complicated version. They know they can't figure everything out. So they say, well, I know I can't figure everything out, so I'll just whittle them down on price so that I build in a little bit of buffer for myself. Now, let me give you guys a quick tactic. If you do get, if you want to separate the 70 from the 30%, and a buyer says to you, look, I need you to lower your price. If you like this, use it. If you hate it, don't. But you could certainly say something as simple as, what if I can't lower my price? And then wait. Now, again, you can't do it like a chess move. You have to struggle a little bit, but you're not saying you won't lower your price or that you will. What you're saying in essence is, I need to know if you're the 70% that just has to ask or the 30% that can't move forward unless. So before you accept the premise that you need to lower your price, you can simply ask the question, what if I can't? Now, the negotiation tactics we saw most commonly used, I would focus on these top three. I just need a better price. That is the number one thing they ask. They have nothing behind it. So again, what if I can't? Will help there, but I need your best and final offer. Or I need to show you the competitive bid, or at least tell you, I can't show you everything, but I need to tell you you're high, right? These are the common types of tactics that were used. Now, the trends in selling that I want to pull out for you is that nearly everyone that we talked to believed that they were better and different from their competition. 94%. If you've ever heard the saying before, you're unique, just like everybody else. That comes to mind when I think about this. If we all think we're so special, why aren't the clients seeing that? And so when we look at this from a hit rate standpoint, I think I'm special and I'm unique and I'm better than the competition. What are my hit rates? They should be somewhat consistent with how I see myself. Well, the interesting thing we saw is that 10% have no idea and can't figure out what their hit rates are. That means they bid and they win the work. Okay. 15% close over 50. They actually can see the tic-tac-toe board. 75% are closing at less than 50%. And many of the folks that we asked couldn't answer the question as to what their hit rate is, but they guessed high. When we went back and did the research with them on what their actual hit rates were, we realized most of them were hitting at about 15%. That means 85% of the bids they're putting on the street, they're not winning. But in their head, they're winning. So what's your hit rate? Your valuable resources are finite. We have to create a tic-tac-toe board where we win more than 15%. Our goal at Sandler is for hit rates to be over 50% as a floor, not as a ceiling, as the floor. So as we look at the outlook here, and we had a ton of research on outlook, what happens when we sell it wrong? Remember I said we want to look at leading the process. So not only do we win the business, but we create great clients. Well, when we win the business at all costs, in the construction industry, what this means is typically the seller is looking to change order their way into profitability. The buyer's looking to hold the seller to the contract. What this creates is litigation. Now, this data here is talking through 300 companies. If you add all these numbers up, more than 10% of the time, projects are ending up in litigation. Imagine the stress, the frustration, how hard it's going to be to sell the next deal if you're in litigation in your current deals. And so if we sell today and fix tomorrow, there's this, sort of this saying in construction, which is there's never enough money to do the project right the first time, but there's always enough money to do it over. That mentality is when we sell or win a bid that bid wrong, we just bought a problem. And it could be litigation. And again, I don't want to scare anybody, and I don't want you to focus on litigation. I want you to focus on the fact that we've got to think beyond the sale. So the reasons for this litigation, are unrealistic expectations, poor performance, poor communication, and a bunch of finger pointing at the bottom. How many times have we sold, and I know I've been guilty of this, where I didn't set realistic expectations, and as a result, it led to bad communication, poor performance, and people feeling disillusioned. Now, what I also just did was I made it harder for me to sustain my business if I've done that. But all this comes from focusing on the bid and not focusing long term. Now, when I asked the question to a lot of the respondents, well, do you see the trends getting better or worse? Nearly 70% said that they believe the industry is getting worse, and that the reason it's getting worse is because of pricing pressure. The buyer wants a lower price. The buyer takes 3 to 5 bidders and pits you against them. You don't even know if those bidders are qualified or unique as you are for this particular opportunity. But yet they pit you against each other, which drives the price down, which creates these problems. So, as we look at this in summary, the point I want to make to you is that we don't win unless ultimately what we deliver adds value to our client. And if you think you're going to win business based on putting together a great PowerPoint presentation, a great spreadsheet, a great interview with your client at the time that they want you to bid with 5 other bidders behind you, it's a zero-sum game. You're not going to win based on your technical qualifications if you're entering at the bid process. And the buyers, you have to understand, the buyer's building risk into the model. They know all the variables they can't control. So there's a subconscious bias from your prospect to manage risk. And again, that mindset, there's never enough money to do it right, but there'll always be enough money to do it over again. They're focused on risk. And if they focus on risk and it's always about never enough money to do it right, but there's always enough money to do it over, the way they simplify the complex is by differentiating you on your price. But that's a bad move. I want you to understand something. In the absence of you being a leader, it's going to come to price. You need to focus on value creation. But there's a trick to value. It's going to be a simple secret that matters when it comes to value creation. See, clients don't know they're doing this. They should be, instead of looking for a lower price, they should be looking to find a partner they can manage the risk with. But they can't trust you if you're there with 5 other competitors saying, trust me, you can't look different. So the dangerous mindset from leadership inside companies is that we have to bid this. See, we all believe in value. Everybody's going to, no buyer, no seller is ever going to say we don't believe in value. But yet companies are investing valuable resources, estimating time on projects where they're seen as a commodity and not a resource. So we have to have some way of evaluating, are we going to be a commodity or a trusted resource in this case? So trust me, I'll build up to the answer on that in a second. But we've found that, repeat customers love doing business over and over again in the construction industry, and maybe in your industry too. But somehow, seemingly, they still pit you against your competitors on price. And I've seen this in every complex sale. You bent over backwards for the client, and the client came back and said, we love you. But look, your competitors are a lot lower than you are. So even though you've bent over backwards for us and done lots of favors, we really can't recognize that. We just need you to lower your price. You may want to answer aloud if you've had that experience where you've done all that work, that favors and extra time and giveaways, whatever it's been, yet you're pitted against your competition next year. So a couple of last things I want to make a point on to get to some tools and some resources, some ways you can deal with this is for few companies that we studied had a business development strategy or process that they could replicate ideal customers with. And what this led to was, do you need to discount? And the answer is you really, in most cases, you do not need to be doing the discounting that you're doing. Ultimately, it leads to lowering profits, lowering delivery, and making it harder on the business development process because we're not creating those raving fans, those advocates for us. Okay. So again, you're selling from a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint presentation or the experience of your team at the bid stage is not going to make the difference you think it might. And again, your clients have a subconscious bias to manage risk. And the only way they know how to do it in the absence of leadership is price. Okay. Now, I want you to understand, clients aren't doing this because they're being mean to you or because they're being trained to be, to use you or burn you. I want you to understand this is, if you want to read up on it, if you want to read up on chaos theory, I got to give some credit to Carlos Garrido for this. We were talking about this prior to the session. He is another brilliant Sandler trainer. And if you're working with him, you're lucky too. But he talked about, and we talked about chaos theory. And what that means is anytime there's more than 6 variables, it's too complex to solve with a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint presentation. The problem your buyer is having is that they, at the bid stage, they don't know who to trust. So they have to differentiate you with price. And we know that in any large deal, you're going to have at least 6 or 7 people involved. That's too much complexity. So what actually works better for your client is to manage complexity, is to go with their gut. And it's very hard to do once you're in that bid process because everyone's being really nice and saying pretty much the same things. So when too much emphasis is put on analyzing, buyers will default to simplifying decisions based on price and neglecting other critical factors. But I want you to understand something, and I want you to take this in. There's an enemy here. There's an enemy you're dealing with, and that is the mindset that as a seller, the way we've always done it is we bid. I've actually talked to some contractors and they said, we don't sell, we just bid. And I'm like, okay, we need to fix this mindset. The dangerous mindset is we bid. Okay. And I want to blow that up a little bit, but that's going to be hard for some of you. And I realize some of you may hate me or really disagree or create some strong opinions. And I'm hoping to do that. I want to be a little polarizing here. But the buyer wants to think they've done a good job. How are they measuring whether they've done a good job? It's on, did they get a discount? You've got to lead and get them to change that to, did I pick the right partner? Where we'll each make money and be successful. The enemy is bid. The solution is value creation. And it's not going to be on a spreadsheet. It's going to be based on your ability to build a relationship prior to the bid opportunity. So let's get into what some of the solutions might look like. Now, look, as unpleasant as it might be, what I just shared with you, you've got to make some changes. They're not complicated changes, but they're hard to do. And the good news is there is a solution, but you've got to blow up what you've been doing. And you can't write a new habit over an old habit. You've got to blow up what you've been doing, and you've got to commit to a new way of doing things. Now, look, if you do this, you'll create champions that will help you sell the deal and make a better client along the way. And again, according to research by Gartner, when you create a champion, you're 2 to 3 times more likely to close and win the business when that champion is actively involved in the sale. So Karen talked about the CARE model and did a fantastic presentation. If some of you joined for my talk, but you didn't hear Karen's, I urge you to go back and listen to that. That was a beautiful explanation of what a CARE model is. A CARE model is crucial for systematically managing every stage of your client relationship, ensuring you maximize the retention, growth, and the acquisition with precision of new projects. Now, what we want to do is we want to guide that process with an ideal client profile. So defining who our ideal client is and the champions that we work with are, we really have the ability at that point to create a more effective solution. So I'm going to give you this tool, but I know that we're moving fast today. So I want you to be able to, if you want, you can take a screenshot, and the tools that I'm sharing, you can actually get by going online and dropping onto this site, and you can pull the tools off of this. But an ideal client profile, why do you need it? Why is it part of your tic-tac-toe board solution? And that is, an ideal client profile is essential because it provides clarity and focus on ensuring that your sales efforts are directed towards the most valuable, underscore valuable, prospects. The focus leads to better alignment of sales strategies. It gives you more efficiency and ultimately more successful engagements after the sale. When it comes to empowering Sandler and the care model, the ideal client profile becomes even more powerful. It allows you to say what makes you different. I think trying to be all things to all people is a very hard game. You may win business based on big promises, but can you deliver? Think about where you deliver happiness to your clients, because that's ultimately what you want to replicate. Now, why this is important is because at some point in your career in business development or as a business leader, some client's going to ask you, what makes you different from your competition? And if I've defined my ideal client profile, characteristics of my sale, ideal company, what are the pains that my client has in doing the job that they've got to do? If I can articulate that as if I've experienced myself, or at least I care enough to know what it is, when somebody says, what makes you different, you can answer a little differently. So again, in construction, if a business developer in construction was asked by a client, what makes you different? If they're Sandler trained, they would say something like, maybe nothing. I don't want to be either ignorant or arrogant in pretending I know what is important to you, what projects you have on the horizon. Typically, though, I know that manufacturers building new building pad sites and ground up construction have tight timelines that are tied to a return on investment. In addition to that, communication is typically one of their biggest challenges, but I don't know if that's relevant. Do you have any projects coming? That's somebody that took the time to study their client based on their ideal client profile. If they say, well, look, no, I don't actually do ground up manufacturing facilities. I'm in multifamily properties. If that isn't the business developer's area of expertise, the business developer would simply say, let me refer you to somebody. That's not who we work with. But if you can't define what your ideal client is, how the heck do you expect to lead somebody that's indifferent, that's focused on price, to something better? So we have to identify our ideal client profile. Next, it's not that you need 500 things in your pipeline. I think one of the problems I see in a lot of cases is we've got a lot of fluff in our pipeline that's not real, stuff we're following up with. You have to ask yourself aloud, am I following up with anybody? You know, am I chasing? If you're chasing, it means we've got too many deals in the pipeline that aren't ideal, and we probably need to get out of our pipeline. Look, it's not that you need 500 things in your pipeline. It's probably that you need 20 that are good, ideal clients and referenceable, and remove everything else from that pipeline. So one of the tools that I'm sharing with you here, but what I'd like you to consider is if you were going to be in complex sales where you're going to bid, you're going to present, you're going to put a lot of time, money, energy, and resources into closing that deal, I want you to create your bid criteria. Now, for the construction industry, I've built one that's customized. It's probably 95% of what you need. You can customize it however you like. And again, you have a QR code to pull that off the web. If you're in a different industry, you can use this as an example to build your own. Now, this as a Sandler tool is called the Pursuit Navigator. And what we're looking to do is evaluate whether the project or opportunity is a fit. Even if we have a great client that we consider a partner, if they bring us an opportunity that isn't a good fit, we should say no. Believe me, they'll still love you and they'll trust you more. But the first thing on this form, which is what we call our Pursuit Navigator, is this an ideal client profile for us? And then it goes through a series of other questions where if you're answering wrong to these questions, you pass. It will not help you in the long run build a happy, successful, self-generating business. So again, that's another key thing you have to have. But what I want you to do is I want you to consider blowing up if somebody calls me and wants a bid, I'm going to blow that up. I'm going to stop investing time and energy and political capital on lose-lose projects and dysfunctional relationships. Look, we all accumulate those, but that doesn't mean you have to carry them forward. So What I want you to blow up after you blow up what you're doing now in bidding, I want you to change to this. This simple graphic is designed to illustrate a very important point. What I want to do is I want you to consider these blue areas where I want you to define what your ideal client is. I want you to define your bidding criteria. I want you to have horizon meetings prior to a bid. In the construction industry, everyone's always saying, like, we got to be between the bids, right? And I need more bids. I don't have time to build relationships. I'm too busy bidding. I want you to get clear on who that client you love, that you're excited to work with, and you bring those on. Your team gets excited. What is the bidding criteria, whether we're going to say yes or no to invest our valuable time, money, energy, resources to bidding that project? Let's go out and meet with people prior to a project that we know are our ideal client. Let's have a horizon meeting. Ask them what's coming up in the future. And based on identifying that opportunity and qualifying it, then we can go to a bid. So I'm adding 4 steps prior to using the tools that Karen shared, CARE model, and the bid criteria and ideal client profile that I shared. You've got to remember there's an enemy, and it's the mindset is it's always the way we did it in the past. You're going to have to blow that up. You're going to have to think differently. You cannot write good software programming over bad software programming. You have to blow it up and start over. So I realize this is hard. It's meant to be polarizing and to make you go away and think. But in summary, what I want you to do is I want you to play to your strengths. It's a much more infinite game in sales than just trying to get the next deal. I want you to reassess who are the clients you love and are excited to work with, the types of projects and things you love doing. And I want you to live by that unique value proposition. And I want you to be clear about what makes your company stand out and act it. I want you to blow up your old habits. I want you to start pursuing projects earlier that align with your vision and value using bid criteria to determine which opportunities to say yes and no to, and stick to it to the best that you can. I realize it's not always possible, but to the best of your ability. I want you to stop investing in dysfunctional projects. That's called codependency. We don't want that. And again, I want you to use the CARE, ICP, and quote criteria to segment your partners and really build a much more successful business. I realize some of the things are challenging today, and this is a lot, but I also want you to see that it can build a very exciting future for you. So with that, if there's anything else that you want to see from those tools, use the QR code and you can download those tools and use them. And if you're interested in the book that we're releasing through Sandler called The Contrarian Contractor coming out next month, let us know. You can do that on the same QR code and we'll send you the book as we release it. I want to thank everybody for listening and following along. And I want you to remember success isn't found in the bids we chase, but it's in the relationships we build long before they're needed. It's not about what we sell, but it's how well we understand the clients we are a fit for and the impact we make by solving their challenges before they even know they exist. Thanks for listening to your success.